Southwest Airlines went in shambles. They've been told for years that their system was antiquated, and because they didn't use a wheel and spoke or what is it, a hub and spoke system, because they didn't do that, it made recovery from these types of storms much more difficult. They had a lot of money, but they gave all the money to the shareholders and the executives. They decided it was shareholders over customers. And you know what? That's capitalism for you. So let's go ahead and play this, and then we'll go ahead and take it on the other side.
Some of the morning's opinion pages tackle the Southwest story. Let's start with the Washington Post. Its editorial board says Southwest put investors ahead of its customers and employees. Writing in part this: what's particularly egregious is the fact that Southwest had the money to upgrade systems, but chose to hand it to the shareholders instead. The airline recently announced it would pay a dividend again that amounts to $428 million a year. Southwest also received more than $7 billion from the U.S. federal government to shore up its operations during the pandemic. It paid a quarterly dividend for years before the coronavirus struck, signaling to Wall Street that the airline had cash to spare. In other words, given a choice, Southwest put its investors ahead of its customers and crew. Its logo was in the shape of a heart, and its stock symbol is LOVE, L-U-V. All of that, as well as Southwest's bottom line, has now been put at risk by its leadership's short-sighted decisions to ignore needed investments while tending to investors. The editorial board of the Wall Street Journal, on the other hand, is warning against federal involvement. It writes in part, the scheduling meltdown at Southwest Airlines is one for the business record books, and the carrier will pay a price for months or years in damaged reputation. The only worst result for seating passengers would be to put Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg in charge. Democrats care less about stranded passengers than they do about gaining more federal control over the airline industry. Washington receded from airline management in the 1970s, and the ensuing competition opened air travel to the masses. Politicians love to kick an industry when it's down, but passengers can take their market revenge on Southwest without political help that will make air travel worse and more expensive. So we've got some dueling viewpoints there. Let's bring in the co-anchor of CNBC Squawk Box, Aaron Ross Sorkin, to weigh in. So Andrew, talk to us about what you're hearing about Southwest. What's next in terms of oversight, or, as that editorial put it, passenger revenge?
Well, look, I would just start with this. We keep talking about Southwest as if this is a Southwest-specific problem, and it is in this instance. But I think there's a larger issue, which is to say, you look at the deregulation, which the Wall Street Journal mentioned in that editorial that you were just reading from, over the last 30, 40 plus years. Not only was the industry deregulated, there was remarkable consolidation that took place. And that has created this almost oligopoly, in certain cases, monopoly kind of power that has led to incentives, or in this case, disincentives for companies like Southwest, which used to compete on price and used to compete on brand. But so much of that competition has withered away because there hasn't been that type of competition in years. So many of the slotting systems at airlines across airports across the country are controlled by airlines, so that there isn't that type of competition, which would force a Southwest or others to invest in these type of things. You look at what's happening in Europe. They have created a Bill of Rights where, if you're a consumer and your flight is delayed or gets canceled, they pay a hefty penalty. But at the same time, there's competition in that marketplace that has forced those airlines to actually try to help those customers in a way that they haven't in the United States. So we can blame the airlines themselves, and they deserve a lot of that blame. But we also have to, I think, look at the larger system. And as we start talking about Bill of Rights and all sorts of other things, you have to also take into consideration the competition perspective. Otherwise, what we're going to do is actually just raise prices across the board, because these costs are not going to just be borne by shareholders. They'll be borne by customers.
He nailed it. The government has to intervene. The government has to create regulations like they have in Europe, where there is a traveler's bill of rights, a customer bill of rights. But above and beyond that, competition has to be open to take away the pricing power that these guys have to monopolize on markets. If you notice, the Wall Street Journal came out right away. They're scared. The government may intervene. The government may actually try to help the American people. And we don't want that. So Pete Buttigieg, stay in your lane. And then we have the sycophants who are going to say, yeah, we don't want the government in there. The sycophants are, we don't want the government in there. You're going to... What can I say, folks? Like I said, there are some people who we can help, and there are simply some we cannot. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel. And number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.